Good afternoon, and welcome to another Government of Anguilla press conference. Today is the 20th of March, and so it's good to see you out. We meet every first and third Monday of the month, except if Monday is a holiday. Good to have everyone here. I will ask Minister Hodge to lead us in a word of prayer.
Thank you, Premier. Dear Lord, we give thanks for the beginning of this week, this new week, and the promises that it brings to us. We thank you for life and health. We thank you for the blessings that you continue to pour upon this country, upon its people. We ask for your discernment and clarity of thought as we go through this afternoon's proceedings. In your name, amen.
Thank you, Minister. So I just want to welcome everyone again. We have the ministers here, the Ministerial Assistant and the Ministry of Finance. We have from the Radio Anguilla, we have Lloyd live. Welcome back from England, Lloyd. Looked like you got a tan. We have Dawn and Brenda from the Daily Herald. Pastor James from the Anguillian. We have Carl Pickering from KC and Channel 4. Our liaison to the Spanish-speaking community is here. And Dietz, of course, always present to keep us live and keep us in contact with the people. So again, I just want to say, it's good to be back and to see everyone. So just want to say in terms of the, those who have lost loved ones in recent times, I want to say condolences to those, and to those who are sick. I want to wish them God's help and mercy to get well quickly. In terms of the Ministry of Health, we've had 3 COVID cases in the last week, no hospitalizations. We know we've had 12 deaths over the course of COVID. I want to say that last week I attended a PAHO, Pan American Health Organization, meeting in Washington, D.C., looking at the World Health Organization Convention Agreement on Pandemic Prevention, Preparedness, and Response. And there was a 0 draft that was presented for discussion with the representatives, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and Legal Affairs from some of the member countries. And this was called the Intergovernmental Negotiating Body 4th meeting to look at this 0 draft and to determine its impacts on each member state in terms of equity, in terms of commitments, in terms of obligations with relating to if there is an outbreak that what countries have to report and how that is dealt with from the regional and international bodies up to the World Health Organization. And other than that, are there any questions for me as Minister of Health?
Not particularly relating.
I don't know if you're on. Is it green?
Oh,
You're
okay.
on, okay.
Yeah. We are on health, so I'm just wondering if you have any update for us as it relates to the dialysis unit. We know it's nearing completion. What can you tell us?
Yes, certainly. Proposed the dialysis unit will be completed by June of this year, and we're hoping that as soon as it's completed, it will be equipped, and then it can be used. We do know that the old dialysis unit has passed its due date, and certainly looking forward to that to help those persons and patients who have kidney problems.
What about the MRI machine? Has it been installed as yet?
MRI machine has been installed and it's working. We are waiting. We did have a MRI technologist that from India that was supposed to come to work the machine. He was poached away by the BVI. So now we got another one from Cuba, and he is getting up to speed with the machine, and we are expecting the MRI techs that set it up to come back to give a once-over to make sure that tech is certified to use that machine, and then we'll open it up for MRI scheduling. That should be very soon.
Going back to your meeting in Washington, was there any communique afterwards or any more details we can get about the decisions made?
No, there was no communique. This was basically for discussion. I know that there will be a report generated by Dr. Ugarte, who is the executive director for health emergencies, and that would then go back to the executive body of the World Health Organization to present what the concerns were of the member states in the Americas. And so I don't know that there'll be a formal communique sent out to the press, but certainly the concerns of the member states were recorded, and those will go back to the executive body for discussion. And then there'll be another meeting, the fifth meeting of the INB, the Intergovernmental Negotiating Body, to look at what comes out of those discussions. Thank you. Thank you for the question.
Dr. Webster, as it relates to the MRI machine and different new avenues coming on stream within the health sector, are we fully staffed? I know during your budget you made mention about some surgeons and some other fancy names. Are we fully staffed at the health authority?
No, we're not fully staffed. We do need nurses, midwives, so they're being advertised. We do need we have 2 surgeons now. That was the plan. One of those surgeons has tendered his resignation. He has some family issues that he has to take care of, and so we will be looking for another surgeon. We also, advertising for a psychiatrist. That has been budgeted for now for the past 2 years, so we hope that we can find a psychiatrist to become resident on Anguilla. Right now we do virtual psychiatry with psychiatrists in the British Virgin Islands, and I don't think that is ideal. While I was in Washington, D.C., I did have a meeting with PAHO, the director for non-communicable chronic diseases and mental health, Dr. Hennis, who does have Anguillan connections, although he's out of Barbados. And we did have good discussions as what is possible. And maybe he's related to you. Yes. So yes. So we are working to try to get better mental coverage, health coverage in Anguilla. You do know that we've had resignations from the health authority, the chief executive officer, and we have an acting CEO, Malcolm Webster, who is the facilities manager also. We have resignations of the chief financial officer and the human resources director. We're hoping to have those posts filled in a temporary fashion, because the plan is to transition the health authority back into the Ministry of Health. And that should come sometime by mid-year.
So with the transition, these positions will still be necessary?
We do have a health reform committee that is looking at those, all those, the staffing, the transition, what is necessary, and so that will be determined. We're waiting on the report from them.
Did you just give a timeline? I'm not sure.
Yes, I said middle of the year we
okay.
should have that transition occur. Thank you. Yeah.
End of the year,
Middle of the year,
or middle?
yes. Yes, thank you very much. I'll go to the Minister for Social Development Education now to give an update.
Good afternoon, everyone. My update is going to be very brief this afternoon, simply because in our last press conference, I would have given a substantive update in matters relating to education. What we do have this week is the beginning of Social Work Month, which is a recognition of the work that social workers have been doing within this community over the past couple of years. We're celebrating under the theme Social Workers Break Barriers, just to highlight the fact that our social workers would be working with very vulnerable groups within our society to kind of create means to empower them to move past their insecurities relating to housing and medical care. And we really do appreciate the work that they've been putting in to ensure that the most vulnerable in our societies are being taken care of. And so we have a week of activities planned. Usually the most popular event in our Social Work Month is the soup kitchen that we have on Fridays, where we just open to the general public to come in. But we're also going to be taking our social workers for some appreciation events tomorrow. And then during the rest of the week, we'll have them giving interviews and interceding with young people who are currently studying at the University of the West Indies to become social workers, persons who are interested in that particular profession. So we have a lot of very committed social workers, and I do want to commend, both in the public and the private sector, that I do want to commend for the work they do in the community. Additionally, this week we have a slew, and we're still in the process, should be at the end of this week. We have our task forces in the schools. We are in the data gathering stage of the task force work. Our surveys are already out to parents, teachers, and specific stakeholders. And as soon as we finish this data will be reported back, and a report will be submitted to the ministry, which will then be used to move forward the recommendations for education transformation. So that's what we're doing this week. There's a bit of a focus this week on social work and education transformation, so that's what you'll see. And we're also hoping to do some work next month with our sporting associations. So it's a very short update, and if you have any other questions for me, I will be open to answer.
You mentioned task force.
Yeah, I forgot about that actually. Sorry, go ahead. Just to also mention, we have the very popular primary school sports day coming up on the end of the month, on the 29th of March. So I do want to ask everyone in the community to replicate the support I saw on sports day, although I don't think I need to remind you, because persons come out in numbers for primary school sports day. And we look forward to seeing very good sportsmanship displayed on the 29th. But sorry, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, you mentioned the task force and the schools. Which schools are they covering? High school as well?
They're covering all schools.
All schools?
All schools in the system, yes.
Any updates on Carnival?
So the Carnival Committee would have done their launch a couple weeks ago, and they've been conducting a couple meetings with various stakeholder groups. They have a schedule through which that they're going to communicate with the public, and I anticipate that they will put out that information in short order. Yeah.
The budget has been in place for Carnival for this year's summer festival. Is it the same, or has it been increased?
It's the same. It's the same budget, yeah.
You may have told us this before, but I'm not sure when you say a task force in the schools, what exactly is going to take place?
So we have 3 committees, essentially, which are task forces, groups of persons. It's 6 members on each task force. One is focusing on curriculum. The other task force is focusing on teaching methods and pedagogy. And the last task force is focusing on pastoral care, leadership, and administration. So it spans across all sectors. There would have been interviews with persons in administration and education, so there's no focus group with administration members, but we would be conducting wide-scale interviews based on a report which interviewed about 459 persons and stakeholders.
Quick question about the soup kitchen. Could you just say where and when?
It's at the department on Friday. I think it begins at 11 o'clock in the morning.
This Friday.
Yeah, this Friday. And just as a roundup, I did return recently from a trip to BVI. The minister, Shari de Castro, invited myself as a speaker on the education transformation initiative that they are trying to achieve in BVI, and that was with myself, Dr. Didicus Jules, who's the Director General of the OECS, and Dr. Jonte Myers, who is a Associate Professor of Special Education Needs at Georgia State University. And that was really to kind of piggyback on some discussions that she and I were having for quite some time about how do we move forward education transformation and how do we actually collaborate at a senior level in terms of sharing resources to get some of our education transformation initiatives established. And that went down to me actually meeting with even teachers in the BVI who shared some best practices for us to actually use here in Anguilla as well. Yes. So that's it for me. Yeah? No other questions?
Thank you very much, Minister. Minister of Home Affairs.
Thank you very much, Premier. Just two brief things. First, that it gives me a very good feeling as Minister of Labor and as an Anguillian to see how people continue to be elevated in the hospitality sector. So very briefly, I just want to share with you some of these achievements which I've come aware of. So over at Aurora, we have just seen the appointment of Chef Lester Gomes as the new executive sous chef at the chef's table. And he's been cooking since the age of 18, and he's being trained in places like France and so forth. So this is a notable, promotion for this young man. We wish him well. And then, of course, over at Blanchard's, we see Annie and Diane, Diane Walters and Annie Connor. They would have started as line cooks, and they are now running the entire show. Right, so we are very happy and applaud them, congratulate them on this achievement. And then over in Malihano, there have been some new hires. We've seen the hiring of Davida Carter as assistant front office manager, Denise Carr as senior chef de cuisine, Shaquai Reed as cook number 3. Then we have Aishlyn Hughes and Samantha Gomes as spa therapists, and Denver Kelly as IRD server. So we really want to commend all of these persons on these promotions and wish them well as they go forth. And then the second matter quickly, in terms of job advertisements. So I really just want to commend the Labor Department for the excellent work they are doing in promoting job advertisements. If you go to the Department of Labor Facebook page, currently there are well over 30 odd jobs being advertised there in different sectors: construction, hospitality, hairdressing, and other fields. So there are quite a range of jobs, and that says something about the island and the economy, that things are really moving. We have so many jobs being advertised. So I advise persons who are looking for employment to visit the Department of Labor's Facebook page, and of course you have all the gamut of positions that are open there as well. There are quite a few, particularly at Malihana, in the front office, reservation, security, housekeeping, spa, food and beverage, culinary, and talent and culture. So considerable number of jobs that are out there and open for persons to apply. That's my brief presentation this afternoon. Any questions on anything that I may not have spoken about? Good. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Minister. Minister for Maiku, Tourism.
Thank you very much, Premier. I just want to briefly say that it's commendable that the Minister of Labor is so in tune and in touch with what is happening in the labor market. This is unprecedented. We've never had someone who's been so in tune with the labor market, and it underscores the reality that regardless of what is being said, over 95% of hospitality workers in Anguilla are Anguillian, and that bodes well for a product, especially when you can compare it to other overseas territories, in particular the British overseas territories, where there are very few, if any, workers in the hospitality sector, whether it be Cayman Islands, Bermuda, even the BVI, that actually work in the hospitality sector. So it says a lot, and we're in a position now where we have a situation where we consider it to be overemployment, in that so many persons are seeking second jobs, having second jobs. And when I mentioned that before, someone said, but they have second jobs because things are tough. But if you don't have a second job to go to, then you don't have a second job. So it says that we are creating enough jobs that people, anyone who wants to work, can have a job. And so we applaud the Ministry of Labor and the Minister of Labor in particular, and Minister of Finance in this government on a whole for the job that they have been doing. I don't think that the Honourable Minister of Education and Culture have spoke to the fact that she's been putting a lot of pressure on me to deliver on the concept drawing for the new Lansing Bowl Cultural Center. But I'm pleased to report that we're moving along quite well in the concept and design. And once we get it to a particular level, then we'll be bringing it to you just for consultation and input, especially on those who will be utilizing the facility, in particular, events such as the Sunshine Theater Group, the Carnival, the bands, so many areas. We want to have it as the Minister have said in the past, something that everybody can utilize, and it's going to be something that is going to be the envy of the Caribbean once it's designed. And some person may say we may not have the money, but we didn't have the money when we came up with the concept and the view to develop the Valley Main Road, or the Airport Road, or the bypass. We didn't have the money either. So if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And we are planning to ensure that when we are ready, and if the money becomes available, we're ready to hit the ground running. That said, everyone here knows that we are awaiting the arrival of the sargassum. And that is something that we have to tackle. And I would hope that persons around, in particular in District Number 1, will not politicize sargassum. We have no control. The Premier has no control over sargassum. And I know the elected member for Road North, Mr. Merrick Richardson, was in standing ground working on sargassum just a few weeks ago. But no sooner than they were finished, the beach was covered with sargassum again. So we're going to wait until this wave is over, just like the United States, especially Eastern Seaboard, is waiting on this wave, and then we'll tackle it, and hopefully that'll be it for this part of the year. Just quickly on the airport, today we are paving the pedestrian pathways. We are installing 2 pedestrian pathways, one that leads from the new parking lot onto the road that leads into the airport, and the other one that leads from there into the existing parking lot. The paving of the parking lot is completed. The stands for the solar lights are completed. The driveway that leads into the existing driveway out of that parking lot is being completed today. The paving for the airport, the apron, is completed, and the work at the parallel taxiway continues, and we're up to 65% design on the new cargo building. Once that is completed, we'll be going to tender, hopefully in around April or May of this year, with a completion date for the new cargo building by November to December of this year. And by August, I believe we should have the completion of the designs for August, September, the designs for the new airport terminal. And once that is done, then we'll be also taking that to tender. But prior to that, once we have the full renderings, we'll be bringing it to public for the public viewing and public consultation. We've had a sneak peek. You won't get a sneak peek yet, but I can tell you it's going to be a magnificent building, and we are very excited about that. Hopefully we can commence construction on the new airport terminal December this year, January of next year, with a 16-month build out. Completion, keys turning before the election of 2025. The Premier has guaranteed me that. As it relates to airlift, we've been in discussions with a number of airlines, including a very prominent regional carrier. Things are progressing well. I won't go into very much details, but I can tell you that Mr. Kendall Richardson, our compliance officer, is off to routes today in Chicago, and he'll be continuing the discussions with the airline companies that we've forged a relationship. They have not yet started flying into Anguilla, but we forged a great relationship, and I know once the airport, this phase of the airport is completed, you'll be pleased to see that promises that we may continue to be kept. The National Green Space, the Honourable Minister of Sustainability is not here. She's under the weather. But I can tell you the National Green Space is coming along well. Willie Van de Poel, he's excited, he's motivated, and he's doing a tremendous work, and he can't come down. And the duck pond is almost completed. The pads and the frames for the pads for the seating area is completed. Just need to be paved and situated now, so the work is progressing very well in that National Green Space, something that we've been talking about for over 20 years. And it's great to see all of these things that we've been talking about and hearing about for the past 4 or 5 decades are now coming to fruition under the leadership of the capable and able Dr. Ellis Webster, who celebrated birthday just recently, by the way.
You don't have to tell everybody. They can see I'm getting older.
That's because of the job, not because of the age.
True too.
Just also to note that the Resembid funded hydroponics, aquaponics project have been started. As you know, some of you attended the groundbreaking last week, and you were able to see what we're doing, what the minister is doing, and the good work that this administration has been doing, and we're very pleased with that. And that is about it for me, other than to please admonish everyone and admonish the Royal Anguilla Police Force to enforce the Litter Abatement Act. I'll leave you with that. Thank you.
Since we're expecting so much sargassum from what they tell us on the internet, is there any plan like we had previously for keeping it and using it for fertilizer?
Well, we've seen what is being said on CNN and other news outlets as it relates to that, what Barbados is doing and what other countries are trying to do to soften the impact. It seems as if this is a record amount of sargassum that will be coming to the jurisdiction. Sorry? Yeah, so I'll pass it on to someone who's more learned than I am.
Not bad. I do know that we have some programs whereby the Department of Natural Resources is working with our international partners in using the sargassum to build back our sand dunes. So they are trying to extract the sargassum. Initially, they had it as specified beaches, but of course, depending on where that sargassum comes in, we saw with the change of wind direction that it was actually coming in on a different end. They're going to try to see whether or not they could widen the scope so that they can collect that sargassum to assist in actually building back some of our sand reserves on island. So there is something in place. I don't think that they realized at the time of the grant proposal being accepted that we would have such a large vat of sargassum coming our way, but nevertheless, maybe we can kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
It may not be as bad as we think.
We hope so.
Question on the grant, is that a yearly grant, or do you know the length of the grant?
I don't know the length of the grant
Okay.
or the details, but we could definitely get back to you with information from DNR.
And I was going to ask Minister Hughes, when you said sargassum after this oncoming wave that everybody's talking about, you plan on tackling it. I was just going to ask if you had any details that you could share with us in terms of how you plan on tackling it, other than building back, building dunes and so on and so forth.
I think the minister said it all. As
So
much
no equipment?
Sorry?
Is there any, I guess, you know, I see videos of beach, actually there's a beach or two here that there's a piece of equipment running up and down. I don't know if that's private.
It's private, belongs to Superior Industrial Equipment.
Okay,
Junie
so is there plans for the government maybe to look into buying some equipment to take care of the beaches, or is it gonna stay private?
Well,
The
there's no
equipment.
allocation at this point, as you know how the budgetary cycles work, but there's no allocation at this point, but this is a consideration.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Mr. Hughes, I know most of the focus right now, well, is on the airport, right? But are there any plans to maybe further enhance the Bloom Point Ferry Terminal? I know during the opening, Mr. Gums said there's room for other improvements. And what about the parking lot? What are the long-term plans for that area?
So as you know, we did a supplementary sometime last year to also build a new taxi stand. That is part of the works that is going to happen. Also, the Anguilla ENC Ports Authority have come up with a plan for a phased approach in terms of the development of the other parking lot. There are two parking lots. One is immediately west of the existing Blowing Point Ferry Terminal that is already completed. That's going to be paid parking. That's going to be premium paid parking. They're just awaiting the equipment so that it will be unmanned. And then they're moving towards the new, the other parking lot on the other side that is presently being used. They have already designed it, have the plans in terms of consideration for car rentals, tour buses, taxi drivers, staff in parking and what have you, and then the paid parking aspect to it. So that is where it is.
Okay. My other question, I guess the Premier may want to jump in, because although this fall under you, maybe the Premier will want to say something. Not too sure. But we know that a couple of weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, we had an unfortunate incident. Will there be a formal report maybe issued to your office, and maybe what policies would be in place going forward?
You mean the incident at sea?
Yes.
Well, the incident at sea, I know the department immediately afterwards, on the Monday after the accident, there was a meeting. There was a meeting to discuss how we can mitigate against those eventualities in the future. I mean, this was a freak accident, and we cannot speak to it at this point because, of course, you know, there'll be legal implications. What we can say is that the body of the lady, she has been repatriated to her home following the autopsy, and that is where it is right now.
The autopsy is going to be at
The
her
autopsy has
home?
already been done.
Oh, it's been done here?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I guess, were you all, did you all reach out to the families and have been in
Yes,
contact with
the
them?
ministers were at the airport, not myself, but the Minister of Education and the Minister of Home Affairs was at the airport when they were departing. We have all visited the family here in Anguilla, so including myself on the very same Saturday. So as you can appreciate, you know, it's a very difficult time, not only for the family, but for me, because I knew the lady in question personally. You know, I saw her literally 5 to 6 mornings a week. So, you know, it's, I'm still in essence grieving from that.
All right, thank you very much. In terms of the Ministry of Economic Development, there will be a public consultation on the proposed gaming policy on the 21st of March, which is tomorrow at 6 p.m. at the House of Assembly Gallery. All are invited to attend and to share your views and ask questions. So that's 6 p.m. tomorrow afternoon at the House of Assembly, public consultation on the proposed gaming policy. We're working on a supplementary budget to procure funding for the completion of the Albina Lake Hodge Comprehensive School. And because we'd like to get that so that students can start in the upcoming year, starting September. The CDB president, Dr. Hyginus Jean Leon, visited Anguilla last week, and met with the Chamber of Commerce and other entities in the private sector to discuss a partnership for prosperity, which showed how the private sector could be involved in national development projects. This started with Anguilla, and he will continue on to other countries, but shows that there is a good working relationship between the bank and Anguilla. The policy of providing health care for those 70 years and older, and we are finalizing the implementation, which we are hoping to do in April of this year. And that would be run through the health authority and will provide care for those 70 years, belongers of Anguilla, 70 years and older, for public health care, so through the health authority of Anguilla. And any questions on any of that?
Can you, oh, sorry.
Don't all speak at once.
Dr. Webster, as it relates to the gaming policy, we know consultation is tomorrow, but we also know, I think last week sometime you met with the Anguilla Chamber of Commerce. What are you hearing from other members of the public as it relates to this particular policy?
Well, I think as in any policy, and some for it, some are not, and they were very good. It was a good discussion with the Chamber of Commerce and other interested stakeholders last week, and certainly looking forward to the public discussion tomorrow. And then we also have a meeting set up with members of the Christian Council and Evangelical Association for next week.
Okay, that was my next question, whether you were going to meet with them separately or
Yes.
have you received a letter from them? Okay, so you all are meeting.
Yes, definitely, we'll meet with them next week.
Sorry. The health care for the over 70s, can you at this stage tell us what it's going to include, how much it's going to include? Is it going to be hospitalization, just doctor visits, MRIs? How much is going to be covered?
Can't say that yet because it will have to go to Executive Council to be, finalized. But the plan is that we want to cover all services that would be provided in the public health system here in Anguilla. So that is the plan, but the final aspects of it have to go to Executive Council before I can make it public, yes.
Can you tell us here today, in terms of the meeting tomorrow, the consultation meeting tomorrow on gaming, how can you convince the public that sport gaming in Anguilla would not erode or further erode the social fabric? How can you convince us?
Well, I think that there's already, gaming in Anguilla with lotteries and all these. So I mean, I think that we'll have a discussion. I think that's what's important. People can, hear their views, and I certainly think that it's best to wait to hear what the people have to say. And then those are the issues and things we can discuss differently. And they can come up. You can ask those questions tomorrow also. Thank you.
While we're on the gaming, is there any update as it relates to the Anguilla Medroca?
None that I have heard differently.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Webster, we know today government was supposed to meet with the Anglican board. Has that meeting already taken place, or is it coming up sometime this afternoon?
And there was a meeting today with the CEO of Anglic and the current chair of the board and members of government, and it was a good meeting, and we were working on the way forward. I can't say anything more about that other than that.
Can you say when you can say more about it? Is there
No, it will depend on some, we came up with discussions on the way forward, and so we will have to continue to work on that. So I can't give any timetables, but certainly we want to move as fast as possible.
As it relates to the way forward, is government's plan still in place to remove the board?
Yes, that meeting is scheduled for the 12th of April, and that meeting will happen, yes.
Okay. So Dr. Webster, we know that Mr. Carter has been asking for a meeting for some time now, and to our knowledge, this is the first time that you have met since he has been the chair. Why the sudden change of heart in terms of meeting with the board if plans are to remove them in the coming weeks?
Well, the meeting wasn't with the board. The meeting was, with the CEO, and he brought the chairman with him.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. Any other questions on?
Just further along those lines, are there any plans by government, since government's preference is the PPA, are there any plans to hold a public consultation as it relates to this?
Not at the moment.
Not at
No.
the moment. Okay, for the PPA, we know that it requires an investor. So knowing that just months ago, sometime government went to the House and passed legislation for procurement?
Procurement, yes.
Yeah, for Anguilla. So will this require the procurement process for investors to come forward? Will they have to go through the same procurement process?
Well, based on our proposal, it would be that there's a request for proposals that would go out, whether from Anguilla or government, and then there would be bids made or tenders made by investors, developers, and then that goes through procurement. Yes, procurement has, Anguilla is included under the Procurement Act now, since we put that in place in 2021. So yes, it has to go through procurement, and then whichever bid wins, then that would be the investor, if we go with the government's, plan.
So continuing along that vein, up until this point, conversations have been, I won't use the word contentious, but they have been definitely a divide between both parties in terms of how this should proceed. So based on the meeting today, can you just say whether or not the tenor of the meeting was more conciliatory on both sides? Was there more give and take, or was it just a rehash of positions again?
A very cordial meeting.
Cordial.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
thank you. Well, Lloyd, are you asking a question?
Yes, in reference to the timetable set out for the PPA, the company that would come in to produce or provide the electricity, compared to what Anguilla is proposing in terms of phase, what do you perceive as the time difference between that company that is selected providing energy compared to Anguilla's proposed for providing its energy?
Well, I just want to say that today we left the meeting with that we would have further discussions. So I don't want to go into details of the PPA proposal versus the Anguilla proposal, the phased approach. But we do know that if we do go with a PPA proposal with an investor, that the time frame to go to 100% transition to renewable energy would be 9 months to 18 months is what we have heard from several investors, developers who have pitched their proposals. In terms of Anguilla, they have a range. Certainly, it depends on them getting the funding, of course, and being able to implement the phases as they've planned. So we've heard, the Anguilla's proposal. As I said, the PPA proposal, we think it's you get to 100% renewable energy faster, and you get to the decreased cost of electricity much quicker. Also, you have to mitigate for, maintenance and all of these things which would have to be covered. So I don't want to get into much more detail about that right now until we've had these further meetings with Anglic, but certainly the meeting today was cordial and informative on both sides.
Will there be other meetings in subsequent meetings?
That is the plan, yes. I want to thank everyone.
Before we close, I would just like to make an announcement. From the end of March, the Daily Herald newspaper will not be coming to Anguilla. This is because sales over the last year have gone down, and we're not getting any adverts. And the Daily Herald in St. Martin has been subsidizing us all the time. Prior to that, and the paper's been coming here incidentally since it started 30 years ago, and I've been writing for 30 years. Prior to that, we managed to be self-sufficient, but they've been bailing us out, as it were, for the last year or so. And it really is not economic anymore to pay all the bills and so on. So we will no longer be an active media. We will not be attending events, including press conferences. You're going to miss our questions, I know.
I certainly will miss you and Dawn.
But we will be sending important news over. Vital news we will send over, but not a lot. What the publisher's recommending is that readers can go online. They can take an electronic subscription. And talking of subscriptions, some people here have subscriptions, and I will be contacting them as to how they can go online and continue those subscriptions. I think that was all I was going to say about it, except to say I'd like to thank everybody for the support over all these years. I've always had very good cooperation. I've enjoyed writing for the Herald, and it's been good. But thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. Thank you, Dawn, for what you've continued to do to inform the people reliably and truthfully. It does seem that it's becoming the way of print newspapers, that the electronics are taking over, and that's the way of the world. But we do know that you have provided a service to Anguilla. We want to commend you for it, and certainly wish that you could continue to do the service that you do. I think if it's electronic, that will still want to read what you write, because you do present the information in a manner that people understand. And I hear a lot of people talk about they look forward to the Herald. So, but I want to thank you, and James, I do know that you also part of print media, and we hope that you two can continue the great service. I do know that subscriptions keep going down as that is the plan. Great. Thank you. So I want to thank everyone for coming out today, and certainly, Anguilla is moving forward, progressing in the right direction, and want to thank everyone for their contributions. I want to thank Radio Anguilla, Felicia Ennis, Lloyd Gomes from Lloyd Live, Don Hodge, and Brenda Carty. We'll miss you if you're not here, but certainly thank you for all you've done, continue to do. Pastor James Harrigan from the Anguillian, Carl Pickering from KCN Channel 4, and our public relations officer, Mr. Ivan Melford, not Melfield, Connor. We have Ms. Jeanette Lemont Guzman from the, she's the liaison to the Spanish-speaking community. We have Merrick Richardson, our Paul Secretary. We have our ministers here. And certainly Dietz, we want to thank Dietz for always being here and for upgrading the phones, the microphones, so that now we don't get any cutouts. And I don't know if that's good or bad, but certainly want to thank you for everything that you do and continue to do. And may God continue to bless you as we continue to make this island better than we met it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.